In the autumn of 1611, the grand halls of maritime power buzzed with whispers of untold riches hidden within the uncharted eastern archipelagos. Ambition drove monarchs and merchants alike to finance perilous voyages across obsidian oceans, where legends spoke of islands paved in fragrant spice. At the center of this maritime frenzy stood Captain Julian Vane, a veteran navigator whose reputation for daring discoveries was matched only by his unwavering integrity. Yet in the shadows of the royal court, Governor Sebastian Thorne watched with calculating eyes, nursing a bitter rivalry that spanned decades. Thorne had no intention of letting Vane claim glory and monopoly over the eastern spice trade without securing a lethal counter-strategy. With the stroke of a quill, the expedition was officially commissioned, handing Vane the command of the flagship while sealing his unwitting doom. Along the bustling docks of Lisbon, trusted sailors and seasoned cartographers boarded the vessel, unaware of the treacherous undercurrents ahead. On the eve of departure, Governor Thorne hosted a lavish farewell banquet, offering hollow toasts and treacherous smiles to the doomed captain. Beneath the facade of camaraderie, Thorne slipped a falsified navigational chart into Vane's cabin, designed to lead the fleet into a deadly reef trap. As dawn broke over the horizon, the heavy anchor was hoisted, and the flagship unfurled its crimson-trimmed white canvas sails to catch the ocean wind. The open sea stretched endlessly before them, a vast watery wilderness hiding both magnificent discoveries and unforgiving perils. In the captain's quarters, Julian Vane unrolled the fateful map, trusting every contour and coordinate inscribed by the royal cartographers. Weeks melted into months as the expedition battled relentless gales and towering swells, pushing ever eastward toward the uncharted Spice Islands. Unease began to ripple through the lower decks as whispers of strange navigational anomalies and hidden pursuers spread among the weary sailors. Rounding the turbulent southern cape, the fleet braved freezing winds and treacherous currents, proving their exceptional seamanship. Far behind them, trailing at a safe distance in the fog, a sleek merchant caravel shadowed their path, carrying Governor Thorne's hired assassins. Entering the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean, the tropical heat replaced the freezing gales, setting the stage for the final leg of their journey. Captain Vane spent countless nights on the quarterdeck, sextant in hand, aligning his course with the ancient constellations. By the 8th month, jagged volcanic peaks began to pierce the horizon, marking their arrival at the legendary Banda Spice archipelago. Guided by the falsified map, Vane steered the ship toward a seemingly serene hidden cove, unaware it was a natural amphitheater of doom. The anchor plunged into the crystal-clear depths, raising echoes against the imposing basalt walls of the secluded anchorage. Lush nutmeg groves and tranquil shores greeted the crew, lulling them into a false sense of absolute security after months of grueling hardship. Sailors eagerly lowered longboats to ferry provisions ashore, celebrating what they believed was the triumphant end of their legendary quest. Yet as the afternoon wore on, a heavy, unnatural silence fell over the jungle, displacing the chatter of exotic birds with an eerie stillness. Standing on the quarterdeck, Captain Vane furrowed his brow, sensing that something fundamental was gravely amiss with the anchorage's layout. He rushed back to his cabin to cross-reference his logs, only to discover subtle discrepancies in the parchment coordinates. Before he could sound the alarm, a thunderous roar echoed across the lagoon as heavy iron chains were drawn taut across the narrow harbor mouth. From behind the basalt crags, 3 heavily armed warships emerged under black and gold banners, cutting off all avenues of escape. At the helm of the lead enemy vessel stood Governor Sebastian Thorne himself, a cold, triumphant smirk gracing his aristocratic features. Across the narrow expanse of water, Thorn's voice echoed off the canyon walls, mocking the captain's blind trust in royal authority. Refusing to yield to cowardice, Captain Vane stepped onto the rail of his ship, his crimson coat fluttering in the sea breeze as he faced his betrayer. Thorn demanded the immediate surrender of Vane's navigational journals, the master keys to every profitable trade route in the hemisphere. Vane offered a silent, resolute refusal, knowing that surrendering the charts would condemn not just his crew, but the entire future of free exploration. With a wave of Thorn's hand, smoke billowed from the enemy broadsides as warning shots shattered the silence of the hidden lagoon. Chaos erupted on deck as Vane's loyal crew scrambled to man the rigging and secure the ship against the impending assault. Trapped in the narrow cove, with jagged coral reefs below and enemy broadsides ahead, survival demanded superhuman seamanship. Knowing the journals were the primary target, Vane entrusted them to his most trusted first mate with strict orders to escape inland if all else failed. Under cover of thick gunpowder smoke, a small longboat slipped silently over the stern, ferrying the vital records toward the obscured jungle shore. Seeing the escape attempt, Governor Thorn unleashed his boarders, sending armed mercenaries across grappling lines toward Vane's deck. Intense face-to-face negotiations turned physical as rival factions collided in the heavy volumetric fog rolling across the wooden deck. Captain Vane stood resolute at the mainmast, his gloved hands held firmly at his sides as he blocked the path to the captain's quarters. Under the pale light of a crescent moon piercing through the clouds, the two rivals locked eyes in a tense midnight encounter. Thorn mocked the captain's futile resistance, believing victory was already secured within the inescapable confines of the volcanic cove. While Thorn gloated, he remained entirely unaware that the most crucial records had already vanished into the dense jungle interior. A sudden flare of signal fire erupted from a distant ridge, casting vibrant crimson light across the dark waters and startling the enemy. Seizing the momentary confusion, Vane executed a daring maneuver, cutting the mooring lines and letting the tide push his ship toward freedom. The flagship surged through the narrow gap between the basalt pillars, grazing the stone walls but breaking free into the open ocean. Governor Thorn watched in disbelief from his deck as his meticulously planned trap shattered in a matter of crucial minutes. Ordering an immediate pursuit, Thorn's warships scrambled to unfurl their sails and chase the fleeing vessel across the moonlit sea. Out on the open water, Captain Vane relied on true celestial navigation rather than forged charts, steering his vessel into a protective squall. Rain and wind enveloped the ship in a swirling grey curtain, obscuring them from their pursuers and granting a much-needed reprieve. Deep in a hidden cove miles away, the shore party successfully rendezvoused with a friendly local outrigger, securing the precious journals. As the storm cleared, the flagship met the outrigger in open waters, safely hoisting the untouched journals back aboard the captain's quarters. Safe within his cabin, Vane opened the recovered ledgers, confirming that Thorn's conspiracy had failed to destroy the true history of the route. Realizing that Governor Thorn would continue his pursuit across every sea, Vane resolved to take the offensive and expose the corruption. The ship turned its bow westward, carrying undeniable evidence of treason back toward the royal courts of Europe. Back in his colonial stronghold, Governor Thorn scrambled to cover his tracks, issuing warrants and silencing potential witnesses. A silent race began across the globe, one ship carrying truth and justice, while pursuing forces sought to bury the conspiracy forever. The return voyage tested every timber of the vessel, demanding absolute dedication from a crew forged in the fires of adversity. On a crisp morning near the Azores, the lookout sighted a familiar silhouette trailing their stern Thorn's fastest interceptor. Captain Vane calmly rallied his men, preparing not for mere survival, but for a decisive tactical counter-trap in coastal waters. Steering toward a maze of uncharted coastal shoals, known only to master navigators, Vane lured the heavier interceptor into shallow peril. Misjudging the depth in their blind eagerness to capture the journals, the pursuing warship struck a submerged sandbar with a resounding shudder. Circling back with practiced precision, Vane's crew secured the stranded vessel without firing a single shot, turning tables completely. Aboard the captured ship, Captain Vane recovered Governor Thorn's signed correspondence detailing every aspect of the malicious conspiracy. Weeks later, the triumphant flagship sailed proudly into Lisbon harbor, welcomed by cheering crowds and astonished harbor masters. Before the Grand Royal Tribunal, Captain Vane presented the recovered journals and Thorn's signed confession letters. The weight of undeniable proof silenced all corrupt defenders, prompting the Royal Council to issue an immediate decree of arrest for Governor Thorn. Stripped of his title and authority, Governor Sebastian Thorn faced public disgrace as royal guards stripped him of his office. Captain Vane stood before the crown, honored not only for his navigational achievements, but for his unbreakable courage against betrayal. With the treacherous conspiracies dismantled, the true spice routes were officially opened to merchant fleets across the civilized world. Julian Vane dedicated his remaining years to compiling the ultimate master atlas, ensuring no future explorer would fall victim to hidden traps. Young apprentice navigators flocked to his academy, eager to learn the arts of celestial tracking and unwavering moral fortitude. A grand stone monument was erected at the Lisbon waterfront, commemorating the resilience of explorers who braved betrayal and treachery. Looking out across the endless horizon from his coastal terrace, Julian understood that true discovery required conquering not only the oceans, but human deceit. Though traps were laid and alliances shattered, the insatiable human desire to explore pushed the boundaries of the known world ever onward. New maps were drawn, erasing the old falsehoods and charting a course toward an era of enlightened discovery and global connection. The tides of time continue to wash over the shores of history, preserving the epic tales of those who dared to sail beyond the edge of fear. In every shadow of betrayal, human resilience shines brightest, lighting the dark waters of history for generations yet unborn. Thus concludes the Chronicle of the Obsidian Anchorage, a testament to courage, survival, and the enduring spirit of discovery.